Spirituality and belief in Japan is a rather interesting thing to look at. The Japanese have a concept known as wa. Wa, for the most part, means harmony or unity. One does what they do with those around them in mind. From what I saw, it's common that people in Japan will go out of their way to make sure they are not inconveniencing other people, even if that act is an inconvenience to themselves. Much like religion, there is a huge significance to death in Japan, and it ties very heavily into the concept of wa, and to a larger extent, one's honor and integrity. If it is perceived this honor has been tarnished or damaged, there is usually some kind of act of penance or repayment made in order to restore one's honor. Aokigahara is a place in Japan. It's a forest just at the base of Mount Fuji that holds serious significance in Japanese culture and lore. So, here we are. This is what I've traveled several hours for this morning. We are currently standing in Aokigahara, also known as Suicide Forest. This forest has a really bad rap, mostly because it is Japan's #1 spot to commit suicide, and it's the #2 spot in the world for other people. So I'm going to go on a walk through here, and I will be scouring video before I upload it. Naturally, my sense of curiosity couldn't be contained. This is a spot I've been wanting to visit for years, and I was hard-pressed to pass up the chance to at least take a hike through the forest. I actually ended up meeting up with a group of professional hobby hikers who accompanied me through the forest, and it's a good thing that I did. We actually ended up lost in the forest for an hour. It was a terrifying experience. By the time we'd found our way out, there was only an hour and a half of daylight left. Considering we'd started at 10 o'clock in the morning, that says something. It really makes you wonder if all the deaths in the forest are all suicide related. Death as we know it is simply just the cessation of life within person. No one really knows what happens after one dies, and all we can do is guess. Some think that there is nothingness, which is hard to wrap our brains around since the natural default is for something to exist. Some people think we reincarnate based on deeds in this life, and some people believe in an afterlife that is nothing but bliss and happiness for all eternity. Whatever one believes in, the concept of death is a mysterious one, and each culture has their own way of paying tribute to someone who has passed on. These campfire remnants were one of the first things that we came across. We also found a site with someone's school backpack they'd left behind, filled with belongings and school books. We found a hiking backpack that looked like it was completely full of survival gear and ready to be used just lying in a gully. It looked like it was fully stocked and had emergency equipment as well. That really drives home the point of what this forest really is. On the topic of death, I should also talk about one of the other authors I read for this project, Yoko Tsuji. Tsuji talks about how prices for funerals in Japan are almost on par with weddings here in North America. Tsuji names prices for some of these funerals, stating that they can easily be in upwards of $30,000. It's also mentioned that it's not just the family of the deceased that pays for the funerals, but in most cases, those costs are somewhat covered by friends, family, and even co-workers, people who knew the individual when they were alive. The Japanese take death rituals and funerals almost as seriously as they do the concepts of uchi and soto. Uchi translates as home or inside, and soto translates as out of home or outside. Tsuji talks about a tea house owner in Kyoto's Gion district who said that one of her most important morning routines was to check obituaries in the newspaper so that her employer could attend customers' funeral without fail. More than a quarter of a century later, when my father was working for a Japanese firm, he too earnestly checked the obituary column and kept a black suit in his office to attend a funeral at a moment's notice. Funerals used to take place at people's homes, but today it's more common for families to hold these rituals at funeral halls, and Tsuji actually goes into a fair amount of detail about the hierarchy of the funerals. Who is seated where, who donates how much, who is regarded as more important when it comes to funeral rites within the family, etc.